To roll. Here we go. Where is it? Sorry, go ahead. It's all you, Joe.
What's up, Tommy? How's it going? Guys, we are live. We are pumped up on the brand new show, Diamond Talk. Joe Gansas and my brother over there, Tommy Florio. What is up, Tommy?
Good morning, Joe. Welcome welcome to Sunday mornings.
Sunday mornings is good. How you been, bro? What's going on?
Good, Joe. All good. Just another week in the year. Getting as we get older, these weeks and months fly by. So the fact that we're talking September baseball on our first episode of Diamond Talk is frightening. That it feels like the year's flown by.
Well, let's talk about that, brother. Diamond Talk. We've been wanting to do this for a while, and this all stems back, and I gotta always give you the proper credit back to 2014, starting your great show on this page, Hard Rock and Sports, that allowed me to start my show. So it gave me the experience from being with you to do a show. We did shows together. Now we're doing this together once again, and I am pumped up to be back. Doing this Diamond Talk, me and you, 90 minutes of baseball talk, something that we're passionate about. Me and you, big baseball guys. Hopefully, we'll get to the roots. Really the core of what baseball is about, the history, some trivia once in a while, the standings, and all the races. But I want to talk a lot about the common sense value, Tommy, of baseball, and hopefully what baseball should really still mean to all of us.
Joe, I would agree with that. I think what gets lost in the game is the little things. It seems to me today most, especially the younger fan, they're all talking, Joe, exit velocity. I mean, they're talking about arc angles, war. To me, the game of baseball is different. It's the nuances of the game. It's the hit and runs. It's the little things, moving guys off the plate and pitching to spots. So I think a lot of that gets lost in today's baseball world where it's all analytics.
Yeah, now we have to show a stat when a guy throws a runner out, how fast he throws from right field. Like, it's just amazing. We have to know that the guy threw a guy out 135 miles an hour. Everything it's today, it's society, it's stat oriented. Have we forgot about a word called bunt? Do we know what a bunt is anymore?
Well, Joe, it's an interesting part of the thing, the conversation, and that's what I think this show is going to be about. It's going to be about reminding people, and again, it's about you and I talking, and we do it quite often with text messages and some conversations about the game, and little things where you'd say, why didn't they bunt in that spot? Well, the teams don't bunt anymore. I think there's a lot of that gets lost, and I think doing this show, for me, while yes, of course, we want to talk about modern baseball, what teams are doing now, who the players are. To me, it's about talking about yesterday's games and years gone by, and the changes in the games, and and it's the debate. It's two guys sitting here, like they were sitting on a bar stool, and does this guy deserve to be in the Hall of Fame? What's the best team you ever saw? I think that all of that kind of flows into what we want to do here. It's not just who's the number one MVP this year, or who's the best player today. It's to me, it's about the game of baseball movies, the whole bit.
And what you just said, I know you are always going to be 100%, and myself. It's very important for us to always keep it real. never just give people a show because they want to hear something. So I know that's what we're always going to be, authentic. I want Diamond Talk to be authentic 100%. We're going to disagree. Maybe we'll argue, but there's going to be respect value there that there should be, and that word called an opinion.
Agreed. Yeah, Joe. Listen, I mean, I'm never going to agree with you just for the sake of agreeing with you. I'm sometimes, we'll go, all right, I disagree, but you have your right to your opinions,
Right.
and and that's the way it should be. It's unfortunate today's culture doesn't allow that all the time.
Right.
But again, the game of baseball today is the game of baseball. Do I love everything about it? No. Did I love everything about it 50 years ago when I started watching baseball? Probably not. So there are good things about it. There are bad things, and we'll talk about all of it here, and we'll welcome everybody's comments and everybody's opinions, and they can people want to jump in, we can send them links, and we'll have some guests, and basically just talk baseball for 90 minutes and try to keep everything else out of it.
I was watching a game because I had texted you last week about the '80 All-Star game. It was on Prime Video. We talked. I find myself. I love watching baseball documentaries. We watched Berra, we watched Reggie and stuff like that. Yep. I just watched Nolan Ryan for the third time. Great stuff. And I just think, Tom, when I watch these games, and we both come from you from Brooklyn originally, but we have this background of Little League baseball, and we both played East Shore Little League in Staten Island, New York. Mm-hmm. And when I sit here, brother, and I watch these games, something happens to me. I don't know about you. It really does. And I'm not just saying this for the show. I've always watched baseball, and it brings me back to the dugout in East Shore when we were little kids growing up with the game. Maybe our parents, my father, your father, a relative throwing us a baseball. So it's a great reminder of what baseball was to, I know me personally, growing up with that background. And it always takes me back to Little League baseball and the fundamentals.
Yep. No, I would agree with you. And listen, and the life values you learned, and, playing in the streets, and again, we played every form of baseball there was, whether it was regular baseball, out of hand, softball, wiffle ball, as kids, it was part of our everyday life. I mean, especially in the summers. I mean, you played some sort of baseball almost every day in the streets, and you could be a 2-on-2 game. It could be a 8-on-8. It all depends on. Very few times we ever had a catcher. Nobody ever had it. Nobody owned any equipment. But listen, whether you like the way the game's played today, I mean, there's a few things I saw over the weekend that turned me off to the game. It's still baseball, and I can get past what the exit velocity on a single to left field is from Giancarlo Stanton, who forgot how to run. He can hit the ball hard, but when he does make contact. But the bottom line is, it's still a game of baseball, and I love it. And I think the problem with baseball that I think they've solved a little bit was it got boring, and it's gotten boring over the last few years, Joe, because what you started out with, what happened to the bunt? What happened to the stolen base? What happened to the hit and run? Teams were just sitting back and playing for the 3-run homer. And I think that's the boring part of the game that I think is being changed now with the bigger bases, with the pitch clocks, and all of that. And I want to get to the rules with you. But listen, I'm looking forward to this. We got a little bit of a talking points, but it's basically whatever pops up. And if anybody's out there and they're listening and you want to throw some stuff up, by all means, throw a couple comments up. We'd be happy to have them.
Yeah, I was watching the game with my brother, and I watch old games. And one thing I know from watching these games is the game wasn't always 3.5 hours, 4 hours long. The game was actually respectable back in the day. If you watch these games, I watched a pitcher in the 1979 series, 12 seconds in between pitches. And I'm like, this is great. This is how it should be, And so my question to you, what happened, brother? What happened to the game that, it made it so long? Now, I don't know if we talked about Nomar Garcia Parra, up at bat, all that stuff, guys like that who took, 45 seconds in between pitch. Where do you think the game went wrong as far as the lengthwise? Is it because of more sponsorships and stuff like that?
No, you know what, Joe? I think that's well. Let's put it this way: there is still only 2 minutes or between innings, or a minute 30. I think it depends on what game it is, national games, locals. No, I think it's the players. I think it's walk up music. If you're not bunting, you're not hitting running. Why are you stepping out after every pitch? You know what I mean? There's a lot of I don't know where it went that way. I would say in the 90s, somewhere in there. But you're right. It was never always a 3-hour baseball game. And, I don't know how you feel about it. But it got to the point where it was tough to watch a baseball game, and it was impossible to go to sit there for close to 4 hours and then travel time. So I don't know where it went wrong, but the bottom line is it got to the point where you could barely sit there and watch in the bat.
And let's not just blame the pitchers here. I'm sorry, the hitters. The pitchers would go grab the rosin, walk around. So it went both ways there, where you're like, and my analogy is this. I'm surprised that even a pitcher would do that, because you got guys like Scherzer and other guys like that who don't do that. My analogy, Tommy, is almost like a boxer. When he's boxing, he wants to keep going. He don't want to stop because he's all hot. Once you stop and you cool down, you come out of your funk and everything. And I mean, you don't go into a funk. You stay hot and you go.
Yeah, what's your rhythm? You want to stay in a rhythm.
Right, you're in a rhythm, and some of these pitchers, I just don't know. They put themselves out of that rhythm. It's almost like mind-boggling. Why we do this.
Well, I think it goes back to the age of specialization, and I think where the game took a left turn, where when you started having specialists, a guy who comes in and pitches, a lefty comes in to pitch to one lefty. It was getting to the point where you were having 3 or 4 guys late in the game in an inning, and how many times you make a pitching change, it's a couple of minutes. And especially when you got into September, when you had 40-man rosters, they were throwing out there everybody under the kitchen sink. So yeah, I think that's part of it. You're right. To me, for more so than the batter, I think, when you're a pitcher, you get in that rhythm, you want to keep pitching. And when the batter steps out, calls time, trying to throw the pitcher's rhythm off, I think that was the old days. Nowadays, I don't think you could, because these guys, now maybe, but up till this year, I think pitchers never pitched in a rhythm anymore.
You just brought up something that I watched the game today, and I actually feel I get sad, because these players, these big, strong, supposedly tough players. What you just said, years ago, if you made Bob Gibson wait, if you made an early Nolan Ryan wait, what's going to happen? Right here, over the shoulder, it's coming inside. You can't even pitch inside, like not even hit the guy. You can't even pitch close to the guy anymore. It's like it's mind blowing, Yeah, like that, like that. That pitch, the guy wants it. Come on.
Hey, the bench is cleared. That's why I had it up on the screen waiting for you to talk about it. The bench is cleared over that. That's the state of the game today. The guy took offense at a thigh-high fastball that tailed in, didn't hit him. There wasn't another pitch, or 2 before that were up in his eyes. The Ronald Acuna got pissed off at a pitch, and I'll show it to you again. I don't know if they're going to go back to it, but look where that pitch is, Joe, and look how mad he is over that. That's the state of baseball today, and that's why I have a hard time with it sometimes, because, I don't know if you heard David Wells yesterday after the Yankee Old Timers Day, but he said today's players are coddled, they're soft, and there's a perfect example. Now, I think Ronald Acuna is a great ball player. Guy's got 30 homers, 60 stolen bases, which is, Jesus, unheard of.
Yeah.
But if you're going to get upset at a pitch in your thigh, in the first inning of a baseball game, to me, if I was that pitcher, I would have came right back in again and kept going because then now you're in his head.
Yeah, I look this way: are these young players today? Do they really know what the game is about? I know it's probably a silly question. Of course, they're professional players, but do they really know why they're up there? Do they really know why that pitch is pitching inside? It's called strategy. Like, I wonder if these players are really educated on why they're up there in a way,
Joe, I don't know. I don't know how cerebral today's players are. I mean, everything's analytics to the detriment, and we'll talk in a few minutes about the Yankees and their dismal season and their over reliance on analytics, in my opinion. But today's ball player, Joe, I don't know what they think up there. I honestly don't believe they do. I think this turned out to stop. It's not longer being about a cerebral game, about being smart and thinking. I think they just go up there and hack.
Say what you want about Mark McGwire. He's not a Hall of Famer in my eyes, but without getting on that, Mark McGwire was hit in his career, I believe, 78 times.
Mm-hmm.
You know what he never did? He never charged the mound. You know what he said? It's part of the game.
Yeah. And police it. If here's the thing, and we're old school. I believe that 90% of what happens on a baseball field should be policed on a baseball field.
Right.
So if you slide it to second hard, well, then your team should slide it to that team's second baseman hard. If your pitcher throws at somebody they expect to get thrown at, that's how you police the game. Now, I'm not saying throw it up in somebody's eyes, hit somebody in the head.
Right.
That's not what you want. Not what you want, but police the game. And I don't necessarily get today's baseball players for the most part, and the thought process behind it. But yeah, if you're Mark McGwire, if you were Barry Bonds, you were a good ball player. You expected the Roger Clemenses of the world were going to put one in your upper back or your rib cage, and they were going to make you uncomfortable. And the great plays didn't let it bother them.
There was a pitcher in the 50s named Sal Magley.
Sure, the barber.
The barber. Why? Because he'd give you a close shave. It's like it's a lost art. I forget who it was. Was it Koufax or Drysdale or maybe even Ryan in an interview said, "I'm not sure I can pitch in today's game."
Well, yeah, because of the restrictions. I mean, you throw inside and the benches are empty, you're getting suspended. So yeah, I don't think a lot of those guys could play today. I mean, let's put it this way. With the antics that happen out, the bad flipping, stepping in and out of the box, all that kind of stuff, those pitchers would have drilled you and it would have been just constant getting tossed out of games. So yeah, I don't think those guys could have pitched that way. I mean, talent-wise, yeah, of course, those guys could pitch in some of those guys could pitch in any era. I think it comes down to they would have been handcuffed. So, but hey guys, I hope everybody's having a good Sunday morning. We're here. This is Diamond Talk. Joe Gansas, Tom Florio will be here every Sunday morning. Probably at least through the regular season, the postseason, and beyond. We'll get to the holidays. We may take a break. Who knows? We'll see. But every Sunday morning, 8:00, you'll find us here talking baseball. I know it's Sunday. Joe, it's opening day football, but we're here talking baseball. That's what we love. And of course, we'll get off the air today and go watch football at some point. But for right now, we're going to talk baseball every Sunday morning with you guys. So we're glad to have you. We got a lot of stuff to talk about today. We'll talk about the fall of the Yankees, the Mets. I want to talk about some rules, Joe, we got coming up. Ohtani and his situation, and a lot of good baseball stuff. We got our buddy Paul Gill hanging in there. He's going to come on. We're going to talk about the rules of the game, the changes. I would love to get into that with you, Joe. And of course, we'll talk a lot of baseball for about the next hour and 10 minutes. And Joe, take it away. Where do you want to go?
So you mentioned the rule changes. Let's talk about the I guess the most prominent one. The pitch clock, which I've learned to deal with, Tom. I don't hate it. I really don't hate it. I've probably told you this before. I don't want any rule changes ever, but I understand. I'm not in control of the game. I am not really opposed to that, because I think it puts players. It's almost like they did players a favor by putting them back into that rhythm, as we talked earlier in the show.
Yep.
So I'm not opposed to that one.
Mm-hmm.
Your thoughts on that one?
Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah. I think it's going to be less and less. I like the pitch clock. I'm not in favor of big rule changes either, Joe. But I think there's some to police the game that were needed, and pitch clock was one of them. I thought the pitch clock was something that has definitely made the game better from an experience standpoint, because watching the game or even attending the game, it's no longer a marathon. Now, again, good baseball, you could sit there and watch it all day long. I get it. But for me, I intend to go to more games next year because the games move faster. You can go to a game and not be there for 3 hours and be in the 6th inning, where, it's 10 o'clock at night and you got to go to work the next day and you still got to travel to get home. Who's staying? Now, games are done by 9:30, and you're home at 10:30 and you're willing to go and sacrifice that time. So pitch clock is one that I was against, but have come to embrace. And I think you're going to hear less and less about it because I think pitchers and batters are now adjusted to it. And people are going to not even pay attention to the fact that there is a pitch clock.
I'm not sure if you've seen recently that a game actually ended because of a violation.
Yes. Yeah. Well, again, that's the bad part of it. And nobody wants to win a game because, the batter didn't step out. Right. The batter stepped out. He wasn't in the thing, and he missed the 8-second rule, or the pitcher missed it, and a ball 4 walked in a runner. Nobody wants to see that. But to the point is, we're in September. If you don't know the rules by now, you get what you deserve at this point. So to me, it's April, May, all right, that sucks. September, you better know the rules. Otherwise, you get what you deserve.
I got a kick out of this. Major League Baseball years ago, they changed the alcohol rule after the 7th inning.
Yes.
Okay, but now Major League Baseball, Tom, is not making the money they did because why? Because the games are shorter. So now they're allowing alcohol.
Yeah, I get it. Yeah, well, because you're not in the stadium as long. Before you were in the stadium for 4 hours, they had to cut you off at some point. Now you're only in the stadium for 2.5, 3 hours. So yeah, it's a lot of stuff that affects. I mean, you're getting a lot more commercials during the game. During a batch, split screens. So it's affecting everything. I'm curious to see how this works in the playoffs. I think it's actually going to be better in the playoffs because all the late starts. A lot of these games, especially when you get to the World Series, and it's an 8:30 start on a baseball game. You'd be up to midnight watching a World Series game. Now, you got a chance for an 8. Now, and again, I still miss the day game for a World Series game. I missed those 3 o'clock in the afternoons, 4 o'clock games. But having said that, it's a new age. I think in the playoffs, when you get an 8:30 start and the game can be over by 11, it doesn't sound like much, but boy, oh boy, for me, a guy who gets up at 4:20 every day, I'm not catching the last 3 innings of a World Series game.
Tom, that's a great point by you, brother. I didn't even think about that part as the postseason approaches us. When you have those 8:30 games where they end after midnight, now that game could actually end before 11 or right around 11. So that's a great point by you. How they've sped the process up of the game, and it should benefit in the playoffs. You're right. Yeah. If we could, did you want to talk about the standings? Do you want to talk about the greatest team in the world, the Mets? I'm sorry. I'm just.
Well, you know what? I do want to get to. There's a whole bunch of some other rule changes I want to run past you, and I do want to get to the New York team. So why don't we bring Paul on, because I want to get his intake. There's a guy who's grew up with us, is a huge baseball fan, and he will be able to not only talk rules with us, but we could talk a little bit about the Mets. And I think the Mets are a weird team in the sense that they're a lot like the Yankees. I think the Mets were built to win quick. I think last year was their window, and then the things that failed the Mets last year, they just compounded and did again this year. Having an older pitcher in Scherzer, then bringing another older pitcher in Verlander. You know, you know, all the guys who fell off last year, like McNeil and Nimmo and Alonso. They all got, someone got new contracts, but you brought back the same exact team that failed last year and expected it to be better this year, and it didn't happen. And it's the same thing with the Yankees. But the Yankees have done it for 5 years. The Yankees just keep bringing back the same players and expecting different results. And we'll win 90 games during the regular season, and the postseason comes, and we can't hit.
Right. I remember in the preseason, everybody was talking about the Mets on this big postseason run, and I look at it, and I gotta go to the owner. You want to bring Paul on, because I got a lot to say. I mean, it's
yeah. Let's bring Paul up. Yeah. What's up, Paulie Paul?
What's up, guys? How you doing?
What's up, brother?
All right, I got a question for you, Joe, right away.
Good.
Is that a Johnny Bench jersey or what?
It is.
I knew you'd do it. There it is. There it is.
Well, I talked to. I have a big. Sports jersey, but I have over like my 25 jerseys. I have a Hall of Fame collection. So every show, Paul, I'll be wearing a different jersey.
I like it. I like it.
Yeah, we might even have wardrobe changes during the show. If we if we get a long break, we might get a wardrobe change for Joe.
Let me know when you're going to wear the Seaver jersey.
Hold on, give me a second.
Is it Seaver Mets jersey? Is it Seaver Reds jersey? That's the question.
There is no other. It's the Met jersey.
Yeah, I would agree with that.
Come on.
Hey, what's up, Paul?
There it is. I love it.
Boy. Paul, let me ask you a quick question before we get to talking to today's baseball. Did it bother you as a Met fan that the Wilpons never really embraced Seaver as the icon for the franchise that they should have?
Yes. Yeah, for sure. I mean, the Wilpons, they were not baseball people. They were business people, I think they always looked at it as a business, which, if you think about it, they're pretty shitty businessmen because they were horrible for so many years, right? Yeah. But I mean, the Mets definitely have a sad history of not honoring their real superstars. They're real like franchise players, well, in a timely fashion. It's.
Yeah, I think it's surprising. For a franchise around 60 years, obviously to this point, Seaver is probably their greatest player. We all agree on that. And to me, it's kind of a weird thing, because you think about it, Seaver only played for the Mets for about 10 years, and didn't retire, that way. And yet they haven't had, the closest they came to me is probably the Gooden Strawberry era, where you had two young guys. I would argue that their best times for their career may have come outside of the Mets. Mm-hmm. Although Good's first 3 years are just off the charts.
Right.
But anyway, it's a little odd that that franchise hasn't had multiple people that you can have this. David Wright would probably be the logical next, and even I thought his career fell a little short because of the injuries, but. Joe, you want to go right to talk about the Mets? You want to go back to I'd like to get Paul's insight on some of the new rule changes as well. But how do you want to handle go?
Yeah, I just want to touch on Dwight Gooden, man. I get almost like sad. That's how much I love this guy. When his first three, I just got goosebumps because I remember watching him. His first 3 years, I don't even know if you could touch them, Paul. Like, he was so dominant, and even Strawberry, these two guys, it's almost this sad story that I look back. Two Hall of Famers that should be, in Cooperstown, Paul.
Agreed. I mean, I think the grandness of being in New York and being a star in New York just got into their heads. I think that they were kids, they were kids and they were running around, and they had money in their pocket, and they were superstars, and they were recognized everywhere they went. And I think that the the evils of the world just got into them, and it waylaid both of their careers for sure.
Maybe New
Yeah.
York was too big. Maybe I'm sorry, Tom.
No, go, Joe.
Maybe New York City was. Here's my question to you, Paul. If they brought that same talent to a small market team, do you think this is a different story?
Yeah, yeah, likely, yeah. I mean, or I should say possibly. I mean, the thing
Right.
is, if people got demons in them that they don't
Yeah.
know until they find them. So it's like, who
Yeah.
knows? I mean, he could be in Iowa, and the same thing might have happened. But here everything is so readily available to you. Like, I mean, everything, and I just think these two guys, like, they would just. I mean, they were the top of the mountain for sure for a couple of years, and all of a sudden, and their careers afterwards. I mean, they had good careers afterwards. I mean,
Yeah.
but they
Right.
could have been Hall of Famers, both of them.
That whole team, guys. If you, my whole family is a bunch of Met fans. Oh God. Anyway, if you watch that team from even from like they were all party animals. The stories are infamous. Keith, David Cohn, who was the outfield?
Kevin Mitchell.
Kevin Mitchell. Oh, another guy. So that whole team. But the one guy that always tried to hold them together was the kid Gary Carter, who they talk so prominent about. He was just a guy who never really indulged in that behavior, but that whole team was just out of control sometimes.
Yeah, Carter was definitely the Crash Davis of that team.
Yeah.
Good reference. Yeah, what's funny? If you go back to 1984, you had the three best players in baseball in New York, and I'll add Don Mattingly into that.
Oh, yeah.
And none of them are going to be in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
And by far they were the best players in baseball. I mean, we can go through it, but by far in 84, 85, Gooden's the best player in the game, pitcher in the game. Mattingly's the best player in the game, and Strawberry's the best power hitter in the game. And a phenomenal talent all the way around. I mean, the guy was a 5-tool star. The guy had 5 tools. So you want to talk about wasted talent? There's a perfect example of it. Let's get a little bit to the modern Mets a little bit, Paul. And
Cool.
To me, big surprise. Did I expect them to win 101 games again this year? I did not. I thought they'd be in the running and win 90 plus wild card, and then hopefully catch fire for the postseason. You're a Met fan. You watch every game. Probably a lot closer than Joe and I. What was the biggest change from this year's team to last year's team? And is Buck Showalter the on the hook for it?
As far as the biggest change, obviously they tried to retool the pitching staff with aging stars, right? And they bring in these two guys, and I'm not even going to talk about the money because Steve Cohen, whatever, he just throws it out, whatever, right? But like, you bring in two guys who are 40 basically, and you had to expect that they were gonna deteriorate at some point. And frankly, being a Met fan for what 40 something years now, you got to figure if somebody's going to deteriorate, it's going to happen when he comes to the Mets, right? I mean, it's a given. So here we go. We get these two guys. We get, the injury at first. We don't see Verlander for a while. Scherzer gets suspended. Every other or every third game, Scherzer looks like, Tyler McGill out there. He's getting shelled in the first inning. And you saw it right from the beginning. The thing is, at that point, there's nothing you can do, right? So you got these two guys. That's what it is. In addition to that, you look around. You look around the diamond and you see guys like Marte. Marte never produced at all this year, and he was such a pivotal point of the beginning of that lineup that, like, you get that whole. All of a sudden, you're looking for McNeil to put up numbers like he's put up the last 4 or 5 years, right? And all of a sudden, McNeil's a 250 hitter. He's not as reliable as usual. All of a sudden, you don't have guys on base. You're not moving guys around base. And, And Lindor, the first half of the year, he looked pretty freaking average. Right now, I got to tell you, he's the best shortstop in the game as far as I'm concerned. But, the first half of the year, this is what you got. This is your offense. Pete Alonso does what Pete Alonso does. His batting average is a little down than it should be. But other than that, Pete Alonso's Pete Alonso. He's been super solid and great, the whole year. But you look around and you got Vogelback, who's just a hole in the lineup. I mean, they didn't do anything on the field, on the diamond, to make the team better than it was last year. They depended on those guys to have the kind of year that they would have, and they figured with the new pitching, with the revamped pitching, with Quintana too. We just saw him, right? He just debuted. Even with the Japanese guy coming in, Senga, he's been freaking phenomenal. I didn't expect that. He's our ace now. I mean, who would have thought in the offseason that Senga was going to be our ace? I mean, it was a disaster. It was bad choices, and then again, these guys gambled. They basically said, let's go out and get the two greatest pitchers that are on the earth right now, right? Or two of them. Well, first of all, let's not give the money to the greatest pitcher, right? Let him go, which is a genius idea. The only thing they did right all year. And then bring in these two guys, pay them tons of money, and have these two incredible aces, right? But it didn't work. And they basically hedged their bets on those two guys to do what they do, and they didn't. And here you are. The thing that worries me about it is I've been hearing little scuttlebutts and things about things in the clubhouse and people arguing and people having issues, and what Scherzer said after he left and what Verlander said after he left. And that bothers me because I don't like when a clubhouse is at odds. I don't like when these guys are and even Alonso, I mean, I got to tell you, I love the guy. I absolutely love the guy. But he worries me because, every once in a while, it seems like he says something that's off. And that other day against the Cardinals, he accidentally threw that kid's first hit ball into the stand.
Yeah.
I was like, whoa, that's not cool. So, I mean, I don't know. I just think they hedged their bets on a couple of guys and they lost. Yeah.
I want to talk about the pitchers that they let go. Paul, I guess I was in agreement on Verlander, but I got to tell you, when I got rid of Scherzer, he was 9-4. So let's just say, because these pitchers and pitchers like him, they go on these runs. Let's say he goes on a run, Paul. He's 9-4. Let's say he goes 9-2 his next 11 starts. That's 18-6. That's Cy Young material. So I didn't like when they let him go, but I think it was a snowball effect with Verlander. Maybe they talked or something happened. I think once they did that and he was gone. So I wasn't crazy about that, and I'm not crazy about Steve Cohen, to be honest with you. Just because we have money and we spend it doesn't always mean we spend it correctly. If you're a billionaire and you have, I have a lot of money, I'm going to just spend money because I'm going to make the fans happy. You got to make the team happy and yourself happy. I don't think he did that there. I think he just spent money because he had it in a way, Paul.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree. The thing is, I think Steve Cohen is a smart guy. I think he made this mistake. It ain't going to happen again. I mean, he's not going to do that again. He changed. The thing with Scherzer, though, there was all kinds of talk, with all the, trade deadline stuff and things. And Scherzer went to management and said, what's the plan here? I came here to win. And what's going on? I hear this one on the block. I'm on the block. Verlander's on the block. Kane is going. This one's going. That one's going. What are we doing here? Yeah. And I think they told him, we're going to retool. We're going to do a retool. And now here you're talking to a 40-year-old guy who's going to the Hall of Fame, and he came here to try to win another one, and it ain't going to happen. And so I think he told them, you know what? Move me. Send me.
It's
I
possible.
agree, but I disagree with you, Joe, on one thing. He may have been 9-4, whatever it was, but the guy never won a big game. Anytime they needed a big game, he never. And even now, he just got his ass handed to him by Texas. Um, facing Verlander. When his team needed a big win, I'm not telling you. And my problem with the Mets was what happened with Scherzer last year. He was great all year. Got to September, and he started to fall apart. And the same thing happened to Verlander last year. He pitched great during the regular season, and then he got tuned up in the playoffs. They're older pitchers. When you put the wear and tear on these guys, it doesn't bode well. So I actually applaud Cohen, and I'll tell you why. He came out of the box and said, we're going to win a World Series in 3 to 5 years. And he went and tried to buy it. Mm-hmm. And then he overpaid for some of his own guys. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then he expected another big year out of Marte. And he expected another big year out of Kanya. And all these guys. Yep. And then he said, I made a mistake. And here's what we're going to do. We're going to build this the right way. We're going to build up the farm system. We're going to bring our young kids up. We're going to play better, exciting baseball. We'll build around Lindor, who got overpaid. Listen, Lindor's a good player. He is not a $34 million a year player. He's and Paul, you may be right. He may be the best shortstop in the game, but he's not a $34 million a year ball player. He's a great shortstop who, has his moments, a little streaky on the hitting, but all that. So I'll give Cohen credit from this point on. What he does is the key. Where does he spend the money? Does he have the farm system? That's going to be the key. Back to Alonso real quick for me. I'm with you on Alonso. He is what he is. And I'll give Cohen credit. He's not going to give him a 10-year deal. He's not paying him $40 million a year. And why? He's not Judge. He's not a great defensive player. He's not a great baseball player. He's a slugger. One little injury, and next thing you know, he's hitting 25 homers a year for $40 million. Pete Alonso will not get a 10-year, $40 million deal from anybody with a brain.
I think he falls in around 5 or 6 at 5 or 6, 150, 100, maybe 180 kind of thing. I think that's what he ends up at.
Right. I don't see him, Paul, and you had a point before alluding to this. I don't see Alonso as a leader. In any clubhouse. Nothing wrong with that. It doesn't make you a bad person or a bad player. We all have different features in life. There are leaders. There are the Mattinglys in the world, the Mattingly's, the Jeters. Maybe if you want to go back to even Piazza and Wright. I don't see that quality in Alonso.
No, I agree, and I think that's one of the things that this team lacks. Like there's not that one guy. I mean, look. My favorite player playing the game right now is Nimmo, and I think he's a good guy. I think he works his ass off. He runs out everything. He's tremendous. I don't see a leadership quality in him either. I don't see a David Wright on this team. I don't see a Jeter, like you just said. And I think that's kind of important. I think that's important for any team to get through those rough spots because they all have them. You're right. I don't see that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What do you think? The manager and Vogelback's father, they grew up together, or he owes him a favor. Because I just want to, I've never broken a TV, but I just want to take the TV sometimes, just throw it and I feel bad for this kid sometimes. I really feel bad for him. What's going on there, Paul?
Hey, Paul, before you answer, hold on. Before you answer, I want to ask that. But so having said that, and all the crazy moves from early in the season with having to play him, last year Buck got a lot of credit for how well the Mets played. Fundamentals, hustling. This year it's been the opposite. They made a lot of bad plays. They were tons of bad base running early in the season. Lack of hustle. The Vogelback situation, which you're about to talk about real quick. To me, as much credit as Buck got last year, he's got to get the blame for this year.
I agree. I mean, I don't think Buck is letting it happen because he doesn't care. I think he's losing control. And the thing is, I mean, I'm partial, obviously, because I love the team. I don't see a lot of guys on this team who are like uber arrogant. Like I don't see a bunch of Bonzes running around. I don't see a bunch
No.
of Manny Machados running around. But like I don't think that they're looking at Buck as the authority figure that they have to, you know. And is Buck too old? I don't know, maybe. But like I don't think the result of this season would have been any different with any other manager. I really don't.
I agree, but Buck's history. If you look at Buck's history, it's 3 years and you're done. The
Exactly.
Diamondbacks, the Rangers, the Orioles. He comes in, he gets you motivated, and then all of a sudden, after a couple of years, you kind of looking over your shoulder, going, "This guy's annoying," and it falls apart. So
Yeah.
maybe it's a little early for the Mets, but Joe, what do you think?
I'm a big Buck fan. I always liked him, but what has he got? I mean, what has he achieved? And I believe this. I think the game has sort of passed him by. I was a big fan, but I don't see this guy even in press conferences. Like you fall asleep. I think maybe it's time to get somebody else. And he hasn't been here a long time, but I'm not sure. Maybe it's time to get somebody else. I think the game has passed him by a little bit, Paul.
I think that if the Mets make a move on manager, I think the next guy they bring in has to be somebody who was known as a hard-nosed, hustling player in their playing days. I mean, it's got to be it's got to be somebody who's been on that field playing that game, sliding in the dirt, like who is going to call out things. I mean, I did.
Do you think they'll go this way? Because this guy's a hothead. He played on the Mets. He's coaching for a long time. You think they'll bring in like a Wally Backman or something, or they'll go outside?
I think they'll go outside. I mean, unfortunately, I like Backman. I like those guys. Edgardo Alfonso's coaching is managing somewhere, right? But it's New York. I mean, we tried that a couple of years ago. We brought in what's his face, the guy who was here for a year and a half. He ended up being a Yankee coach, I think. What was his name? Our old manager, the Spanish guy.
Yeah, Rojas.
Yeah. I mean, we tried that, and it doesn't work.
Well,
it's New York.
I got a list of potential managers. These are the names that are being thrown around. One is Craig Counsell, Doug Melvin, Bob Melvin, Eric Chavez seems to be the leading candidate, which I don't understand. Joe Espada, Pat Murphy, Carlos Beltran never seems to go away, and AJ Hinch. Those are the leading candidates. Yes,
I think why they want to bring in Counsell, don't they also want his GM too?
Well, that's the talk. They're talking about this guy. Yep. This guy Stearns coming over and building the Mets, and he's been his guy. So I don't know. I don't know what the answer to today's ball players are, guys. I don't know. Do you bring in? I like Aaron Boone as a person, but as a baseball manager, I find him to be vanilla. And it's I want a guy call out your players. I want a guy who benches a player when he's not playing well. I want a guy who says that's I saw dumb base running. I watched Giancarlo Stanton jog around second base, jog around third base, get thrown out at home without any sort of, and not one thing from the manager. To me, he don't play for a week, and I'm sitting in the press conference going, I don't know what you guys go ask him what he did.
It's all about money, Tom. It's all about money.
And that's the problem. That's the problem. I don't know how you manage these players today. I don't know how you do it.
I mean, the last guy on your bench probably makes more than you. In a lot of scenarios there. So
absolutely. Yeah.
I got a guy that I don't know, where he went. How about a guy like Mike Scioscia?
Yeah.
Well, Bruce Bochy. I mean, guys like that. But again, can they manage today? Can you take a Billy Martin type guy and put him in the clubhouse that you have today? I don't think you could do it.
It'd be fun to watch, though. That'd be fun to watch.
I agree, but these guys. I mean, Paul, I played a clip before. I don't know if you saw the highlights from Pittsburgh and Atlanta, but Acuna got thrown at, and I won't say
I did
it's
see
at the thighs. It's at the thighs.
Yeah.
and the guy lost his mind. That's the mentality of today's player. Is you know they're soft and they don't like to be yelled at and they don't like to be benched and I never see a guy go into the dugout and break up a water cooler anymore.
Yeah,
Nobody,
it's the extension of the entitled generation. These
yeah,
last two generations, like all these kids, they're like, wait, well, hold on a second. I got to start at the bottom and work my way up.
yeah,
They're all like, what?
yeah,
It's the same thing. And Acuna, I mean, let's face it, this guy's a superstar, right?
100%.
And he's thinking he's Teflon. How dare you throw inside to me? Like,
Yeah.
what?
Yeah,
I mean, in the old days, imagine if he did that and Nolan Ryan was on the mound. What would the next pitch be?
Yeah.
Up
and back. Yeah, I mean, if he would have stepped out, gave him a side eye, he would have got one in the rib cage or in the upper back. Said, if you want me to hit you, I really will hit you.
Exactly.
Yeah, you got guys back then. You got guys like Bob Gibson. Bob Gibson, guys, didn't talk to his own teammates when he pitched. That's how immersed he was in the game.
Yeah. Listen, guys, everything changes, and I get it, and I call it the pussification of this generation and of its ball players. I mean, I never seen guys who don't play as much as who sit out as much as they do. Guys don't play 3-4 games in a row. You're watching the guys. Oh, he's played quite a bit in the last week. He played 4 games this week. What do you mean? Guys go to work every day for 12 hours a day, travel. And you tell me this guy can't play baseball 5 days this week. He can't play, four games in a row. So it's the pussification of the generation, and listen, the coddling of the players. So I don't think it's going to change. Paul, how fast can the Mets be fixed? And I say that because they're going to be 30 games under where they were last year by the time the season ends.
They are. I just looked at the standings this morning, and I was very, very, very sad to see how close Washington is actually done. Yeah. But anyway, how quickly? Look, I mean, it's a twofold question. If you do it right, if you do it correctly, I think 2 to 3 years they can compete. If you do it wrong and you get lucky, a year, 2 years. I mean, what are they going to do in the offseason? Obviously, they're going to go out and buy a couple pitchers.
You have to. The bullpen's a wreck.
I mean, you know what? Urias getting arrested is probably the best thing that ever happened. I mean, he's on my fantasy team, and I'm in the playoffs in the fantasy, and he's my second best pitcher, and he gets arrested just before the playoffs for me. So it's bad. But the thing is, he was the one that they were talking about. Like, the Mets maybe being interested in going in on him. I'm thinking Snell, maybe, I'm thinking like that's the level the Mets are going to play on. Or do they not do that? Do they bring in a couple mid-level pitchers, good serviceable guys, let Senga be the number one and work on these kids that they picked up with these trades? Because I got to tell you, I've been looking at the farm system, and a lot of these guys that they just brought in with the deals at the deadline are really, really, really interesting players. And, if they do it right, a year or two, and all these guys, I mean, most of these guys, I should say, are like 23, 24. They're not 21 or 19 or whatever. So they're close in age of coming and trying to play. So the thing is, it's like, I think this team, if they did it right, it should be interesting to watch. It's going to be guys, moving the ball around, doing things, and they're going to lose games because they don't have super top-notch pitchers. But a year or two of that, and I think you could have a team that like has good, solid, really good, solid young players. And when they come up for contract, unlike most franchises, we can pay them. It's not going to be the Marlins, it's not going to be the Marlins. It's not going to be the Reds. It's not going to be the Royals, like where they got to let them go because they can't pay them. I think 2 to 3 years is the plan. As a Met fan, I'm willing to invest that time. I'm willing to invest the time as long as you give me an interesting product.
That's the big question is, I don't mind teams losing. I've watched bad Yankee teams. I don't like uninspired, boring baseball. That I can't deal with.
Yeah. I want every single guy. I want every single guy to take a lesson. All these young guys to take a lesson from Brandon Nimmo. And when Nimmo hits a little dribbler up the line, run his ass off. Like I want to see that. That's what I want to see. I want to see. I hate to bring him up because he's such a bad guy, but like how Lenny used to play. Like I want to see that guy, and you're not going to see it in Marte. You're not going to see it in these kind of guys. It's like, like they got to cut bait on a few of these guys. They got to open up spots. The one thing I don't like about the Mets is they got so many guys that seem to have to play out of position. How many third basemen are going to be on this team? They just said Mauricio's going to start taking reps at third. And I'm like, you got Vientos, you got Beatty. There's another kid in the minors who might be better than a couple of those guys, and then you got McNeil. McNeil's a utility guy, like he can play anywhere, but he's a second baseman. Like it's that I don't love. But it is. I mean, it is what it is. It's I think two solid years, and I think that they could be somewhere.
Well, yes. I don't know if I agree with that, maybe a little more, but that's okay. I do think this offseason for the Mets is very pivotal, Paul. I think we need a lot of thought process. I think it has to be a very productive offseason, this one coming up for that future.
Sure.
Yes. Yeah. I mean,
look, but solid direction, Paul, solid direction. You got to decide what your team's going to be. You need a couple of good veterans, maybe in the field, maybe you need a body here and a body there in the field. You got to figure out the catcher. Is Alvarez going to really be the deal? Are you going to keep Alonso long term or not? That's the question. If you're not, trade him now. And but you got to fix the pitching staff, and you're not going to do that out of the minors. All told, those young kids, you may get one or two of them. You still need an ace. Senga's not an ace. He's a good solid 2.
Agreed.
Definitely a great 3. And you got to fix the bullpen. Hopefully Diaz comes back and you got your closer spot locked up.
I think the key to all of that is they got to make the decision, and they got to make the commitment or not make the commitment to Alonso.
Yeah,
like, 100%. Is he going to be your cornerstone? Is this going to be the guy who you put on every poster? Is he going to be the one? He's young enough. You got a good number of years of him left, like, at top ability. You either make the commitment now and you do it right, or you leave him hanging, and that's it. I mean, they got to make a decision on him, and they can't look indecisive. That's correct.
Yeah. So that's a great word, Paul. What do you think let's just say if they don't sign Alonso, what are the fans going to be thinking about
a revolution?
It's going to be
I mean, and I'm not saying they should. I'm on the fence with him. I like him. I really like him. I'm not saying they should, because I don't want them to overpay him. I don't want him getting $840 to $320. I hope it ain't like that. But if they don't sign him, what is the 40-year-old Paul Gill fan? What is a guy who's been watching since 1962? What is that fan going to be thinking? Says, where is Cohen and this whole team? What are they thinking?
Well, I mean, the first thing that I would be thinking is, here we go. We're back to 1975. Yeah. Like we're going to be a doormat. All this kind of stuff. But I mean, it would be hard. I think it would definitely take a piece out of the fan base to let this guy go now. We've seen too much. I mean, they've just been flesh and stats the last couple of games that Alonso has hit more home runs and has more RBIs of anybody in all of baseball since 2019. It's prolific. He is a 40 average a year guy. They started prorating stats. He's going to hit 400, 500 home runs. I don't know if that's going to happen, but this is the guy. It's the face of the franchise. They gotta make the decision. I hope they make the decision to keep.
I think the decision's made already, to be honest with you, because he was up on the block. If somebody would came across, I think he's still on the block. And if you were going to sign him in a year like this, what would be the best news you can give Met fans? We're going to give Pete Alonso an extension. We're locking him up. He's the guy.
Give him something.
And they didn't. And it's telling, because, listen, Paul, and I agree with everything. The guy's a prolific home run hitter. But all you need is one injury, and the guy's useless out there. He's not Judge. Judge is a good outfielder. He hits for some sort of average when he's on the money. He can run. He's a good baseball player. Pete Alonso is not a great baseball player. He's not a great defensive first baseman. He's better. But if his power production dropped into the 20s, is he worth your long-term commitment other than public relations? That's all that would be. And the guy's a bit of a knucklehead.
It seems that way. Yeah. I was surprised by that. I mean, that worries me. That I'm not sure that his head is on straight after all. But
that's the problem. But Joe, to your point, Met fans will storm the castle and they will be screaming because the Met fan wants wants one guy who's their homegrown guy who actually finishes a career as a New York Met and has a good career.
Yeah,
great point. And to allude Paul's point from before, both points by you were excellent, guys. That you don't want to give him that 8-9 year deal, but Paul, maybe they're stuck here. Maybe they what Tommy just said. Maybe that guy we want our guy. Maybe they're gonna have to, in a way, give him that contract. I hope it isn't. To me, what would I give him? I give him 6,180. But it ain't happening. He's getting more than that. It's just not happening.
The problem. He wants more than that. That's going to be the problem. Is he's going to want the 8, 9, 10 year deal at 40 plus, and the question is going to come down to: will Cone can afford it? But he's a smart businessman. Is going to say, I'm not locking up that position and that kind of money for a guy like that. And I think that's exactly why he was on the trade block. I don't care what you could have gave me. If you're Cohen, you're trading Alonso, you're throwing up the red flag to your entire fan base that you gave up on your next great homegrown player or considered great. So, but hey guys, Diamond Talk. That's Paul Gillies hanging out with Joe Gansas and myself, and we every Sunday morning at 8 a.m. talking baseball.
Yeah, and those contracts, guys, if you really think about the history of those 10-year deals, I'm not even sure anybody has fulfilled them. Stanton didn't fulfill it in Florida. Even Pujols, I'm not even sure. He might have finished out his one with the Angels, but you don't see these contracts,
Nope.
9-10 years, and I don't know. I'm on a block with him. He's produced Paul tremendously, Alonso. I mean, I think only full year he didn't hit 40 home runs. He hit 37. So he produces. He's a home run hitter. He's going to be a 250, 260 average. Take it or leave it. But you know that already. So I don't know where they go, but they got to be careful with him. You don't want to give him too much, but you have to wet everybody's beak. Also.
Yeah. Well, somebody's eventually going to give him a bloated contract.
Yes.
So,
no, it'll happen. Listen, Scott Boras has the famous line: "All you need is one idiot in the room." All you need is one idiot owner who says, and it's usually the guy in Texas. Who finally may be getting it right, but a team will say, you know what, we're going to go for it, and we'll eat the money later on, and that's what happens. But hey, before we let Paul go, I want to throw a couple of the rule things out to you guys, and we'll just run through them real quick. A quick observation each on the different rule changes of this season, if you don't mind, Joe. I'd like to kind of get everybody's take on. The first one, obviously, Paul, we talked about it, Joe and I. Pitch clock, fan, not a fan.
Hated it when they talked about it. Love it now. I think it's fine. Joey made a point before that makes a lot of sense. We're actually pushing these guys to keep in their rhythm. So it's actually beneficial to the pitcher. I love that the catchers, especially the Met catchers, I got to say, are so locked on that clock, and I don't think we've gotten a violation all year. Like time, and they make the move. But I think it's good. I think it moves the game along. I always look at it this way. When my wife says, let's go see a movie, I'm like, what movie? And the first thing I do is I go on my phone and I see how long the movie is. and if it's like close to 3 hours, I'm like, nah, I don't want to go. So and I love baseball. I'll sit there for 7 hours watching a doubleheader. I don't care. But these
But
games, like you said, Tom, like leaving the stadium at 11:30, quarter to 12, and going home.
On a
It's
9-inning game. Yeah, it's
yeah,
ridiculous.
yeah,
Yeah. So,
yeah,
how about the Joey? How about the limiting of throwovers to first base?
I hate it. I just don't like it because again, we're taking the strategy out of the game. You see, okay, when you throw over, if you throw over 5 times, what are we doing? We're making that base runner tired. Okay, he's going to get tired. He's got to get up. He's got to wipe off everything. He's got to slide again, a bigger lead. So I'm not a fan of that one.
I agree. I agree 1,000%. Every word Joey just said, I echo that. Yeah.
Yeah, you want the guy leaning back, and once look at the guy stealing bases. After two throwovers, you're basically, standing at second base by the time the pitcher turns around. So I'm with you. I think that's a ridiculous one. I understand speeding it up a little bit, but you can't limit the throws over. That's ridiculous. Paulie, how about no shifts? No, you can't shift past the other side of the bases. I'm not a fan of the shift. I hated the shift. But I also think you can't take that strategy away from teams. And if you can't learn to hit where they ain't, you shouldn't be playing the game.
This is one of the things about baseball that I'm not willing to change. I hated the shift. There was absolutely no reason why a third baseman should be standing in short right field ever. Okay, And you know what? The thing is, you still have the versatility. You can, like, the second baseman could play right on top of the bag. It doesn't, you can shift-ish, but like this craziness where you pick up players and throw them all over the field, I think it was ridiculous to begin with. It's all based on analytics, right? Danny Vogelback pulls everything. So let's put everybody on this side of the field. I mean, it's juvenile. Baseball is the positions that there are. There's a range that each player is supposed to police, and that's the way it should be. And if you can figure out how to hit through that, you deserve it. No, stacking the deck with the shift, I hated it, and I'm glad it's gone.
I'm the exact opposite. I love the shift. I just found it so great. I love the shift. Listen, Paul, you got players today. If you took every off the field, these guys still couldn't bunt. So you if you want to, my thing is, if it's part of the game, you want to take your whole infield and put them on the right side. It just boggles my mind that you do that and you have a Vogelback or a lefty hitter who's a pull hitter and he can't lay one down to third. It like you can crawl to first. So I always like the shift, just me personally. But if you think about it, the shift always benefited the fielders because they always hit right there.
Yeah, that's true.
If you got the whole left side of the infield open and you pull the ball to the right, then you deserve what you get. I don't like the shift, but I also think you can't take away strategy, and that's part of strategy. If a manager wants to put 4 guys in the outfield, 5 guys in the infield, that should be their decision to make. I don't like it. I hated it, but I don't think you should take it away from the game. Mm-hmm. Paulie, before you go, I want to ask you guys a quick question. Joe, I'm sorry, I'm kind of throwing things out there, but
you got it,
guys, why has the bar been lowered so much in baseball? And what I mean by that is, I've never seen so many guys near batting under 200, and major stars, guys like Stanton, we talked about, who was batting 190 for a while. Why is it guys can't play more than, 3 or 4 games in a week? Why is a 5-inning pitcher now the norm? Why is it acceptable, Joe, for baseball players today to be held to such a lower? Think about this, and I'm not going to knock Alonso, but I'm just going to use him as an example. We grew up. Who was the biggest joke people made fun of in baseball? Was Dave Kingman. He hit 240, he hit 250, but he hit 40 homers every year and drove in 90 RBIs. Right. And that is what these guys are today. And that Dave Kingman was the biggest joke. Everybody laughed. Who wants Dave Kingman? Paul, Joe, why has the game and the standards of the game been lowered today when these guys are obviously better athletes than ever before? Joe?
Right. I think it's a combination. I'm not sure, as we talked to before, of sometimes, and I I look at these players, you know, where is their thought process? What are they thinking on that field? You know, so many times, uh, are they doing the right thing for the game? Sometimes I think about that. I'm saying, you know, where are these young kids today? Are they educated on the history? Do they know what happened years ago? So I look at the game today and I say, you know, what is the ultimate goal of these players when they come up? Is it to hit a home run? Are they thinking about what the game is really about? You know, and what their job is. I don't know sometimes if they're thinking that way. You know, I don't think we're ever going to see another 300 win. 3,000 strikeouts is even much. 500 home runs, but there's got to be a reason for that, Tom. Like you asked, I don't know where it started, but I don't think it's coming back.
Yeah,
I agree, Paul.
I think it's because every single one of these guys goes out there, and I think whether it's in the front of their mind or the back of their mind, every single play that they make on the field, every second they're on the field, their contract and their next contract is the first thing that they're thinking about. You know, and the thing is that doesn't make sense, obviously, because these guys like a Stanton who hits 200 for a period of time, he's making all kinds of money. So how could he be thinking about his contract and like hitting 200? But like I just think that I mean, and I could be wrong. Like I'd love to hear like a player, it's like some mid-level player from the 70s or 80s come on the show and answer this question. Like, how much did you really think about your contract every time you stepped on the field? Like, how much, like, I think a lot of these guys go on the field, if they're not already a Boris client, they're thinking, how could I become a Boris client? I mean, I think that these guys have money in their mind. I think Joey's right. I don't think that a lot of them really understand or know the real history of baseball. Like, how it, I mean, I just think that they're so money driven that in some cases it drives them to be better than they really are, and in a lot of cases it drives them to be worse than they should be.
Yeah,
because they're not focused, they're not concentrating, they're not thinking about what they used to think about, like when they were in high school and their coach was like making them take reps in the cage and watching his swing. Like they're not doing that.
Tom, I don't want to go back, but if I can go back 1 second. What Paul just said, how these players are not educated on the game. These guys don't even think right. If I'm on the on deck, if I'm on the on deck circuit and I'm up next, and the guy just hit a home run to put us ahead, I'm already thinking. I'm thinking the ball's coming inside.
Absolutely,
I'm thinking that way.
Sure.
And so when it happens, I'm also going to be like, see, there's no more respect in the game. There's no a mano. If I throw a hitter 100 miles an hour, he hits a home run, you got to give him a little bit. There's no respect no more. So if that pitcher throws inside, I understand why. Tom?
Yeah, of course, Joe. Again, the game, the mentality, we saw it with the Acuna at bat we played earlier in the show. There's no more respect for the game and the way it's played. To me, if you're insulted by that, get a hit on that at bat, or the next inning, your pitcher comes back and throws inside at their best player, and you let him know that we can do the same things. It's a different game, and that's why I brought up the stats. I think I was just looking at a lot Lindor stats for the season. Paul, I agree with you. He's probably the best shortstop in the game. The guy's got 130 hits for the season. He's batting 250. You know what I'm saying? So the standards have been lowered, and that's the question when I started this was, why do we accept? I looked up a couple weeks ago, and Giancarlo Stanton, who's making $40 million a year, is batting 195. And I'm watching before on the MLB network, and they're talking about his 400th homer and how great, third fastest guy. The guy's batting 190, folks.
Right.
What are we glorifying here? So he hit 400, his 400th homer. His team is out of the playoffs. He's done nothing all year, and we're worried that he hit his 400th homer and he's third fastest guy there. To be honest, he should be at 500 homers based on the career he's had and the amount of injuries the last few years. So, it's a weird it's a weird time in baseball. Maybe it's going to come back, but it's a weird time in baseball. The fact that we've lowered the standards of what is great,
Right.
and I worry, Joe. We're going to talk about in a minute or two. And Paul, you might as well hang with us. We're only got about 15 minutes left. If you got time,
Cool.
just stick with us. I want to get to Joey Votto. I want to get to some Hall of Fame stuff with you guys. But if you look at it, we have accepted in what's going to happen, Joe, 5 and 10 years from now, when guys like Stanton and Lindor are going for the Hall of Fame, and we look at their numbers, and you go, well, the guy hit 250 for his career, and that era, he was the third best shortstop in the game.
Right.
Let's talk about.
It's going to be tough. No. Go ahead, Joe.
Let's talk about Stanton, because if he keeps playing, and you, Tommy, you made a great point, brother. He should have over 500 now with his injuries.
Sure.
Yeah,
absolutely.
But so let's say he ends up. Let's just say he ends up with his career. If he plays, I doubt he'll reach 500. But if he gets 510, for some reason, I doubt it, and he's batting 265, there's going to be discussion.
He's a Hall of Famer.
He's a Hall of Famer.
Yeah. Even if he stops playing now, he's going to be a Hall of Famer by name only. Sorry, Joe. I'm with you. I don't put him in that category. But in today's day and age, 59 homers in the season, MVPs, prolific home runs, Giancarlo Stanton, 5 years or 7 years after he retires, will be a Hall of Famer.
He will
then
be, yeah.
We're going to have a big problem in the future because guys, I'm so passionate. We talked about this, Tommy. I'm not even sure I brought up a Paul in the past, but the Hall of Fame, it's the best of the best of the best. It's not a very good club. It's not even a great club at times. You have to be the best of the best. But do you? When you put a Jim Tomei in, because he hit 600 home runs, it boggles my mind that last week I was driving and I listened to the fan. I'm sure you guys I've been a fan since Joe Beningo overnight. I love Beningo. But one guy, and I was on the turnpike and I almost crashed because we bring it up David Wright in the Hall of Fame again. And me and my brother just want to get a car so we could just bang into people. I wanted to bang into people right there as I'm driving. David Wright, I just sometimes where we go with this Hall of Fame stuff, I don't even know.
I talked to a Met fan once, and you both know the guy, and I won't tell you who it is because I'm not a fan of the guy, and I haven't talked to him in a few years. But we talked about Dave Wright, and I said Dave Wright was a really good player. But at some point in your career, to be a Hall of Famer, you need to be at a minimum top 5 in the game and your era. If you're not considered top 5, you shouldn't even be in the category of it. And not for a year or two. You need to be, at some point. Somebody has to say, in your time, you were top 5. If you weren't in that conversation, I don't care what your stats were, you're not a Hall of Famer. David Wright was a really good player, but this guy said after a discussion, and he finally kind of admitted it. He said, "Well, but he's a Met. We need a homegrown Hall of Famer, so let us have David Wright." And I'm like, "What does that mean? Like, what does that even mean?" I love Don Mattingly. For 5 years, Don Mattingly was the best player in baseball. Not even a question. From 84 through 88, 89, Don Mattingly was the best player in baseball, and I would not put Don Mattingly in there. But because of what you just said, Joe, Jim Tomei, Harold Baines, and a whole bunch of other guys, Paul, what do you do with the Hall of Fame going forward when you look at guys like, and I'm not picking on Lindor, he's just a guy we talked about. Mm-hmm. Those guys, Giancarlo Stanton, when they pop up on the screen, 5 years after they retire, are you putting a check mark in? And what do they judge by? Their era or the past? Because it used to be the past.
Right. Yeah. I mean, that's part of it. I think these guys, when they're coming up and they're on the ballot, maybe the second time or the third time or whatever, I think these guys are really just focusing on the numbers on the sheet, and they see a sexy number like, 420 home runs or, lifetime batting average of 299 or 300. And I think that they're judging them on that. I don't think that they're looking at the library of players that are already in the Hall of Fame and what they did. They're not looking at DiMaggio's numbers. They're not looking at Mickey Mantle's numbers.
Right.
They're not looking at that. And the thing is, and like Joey says, it's gotten watered down. It's gotten watered down. It's not all the greatest players, the greatest of the greatest, the best of the best, as Joey said. It's yeah, you were really good. Yeah, you can come in. And there's other things too. Like all of a sudden, like the player's personality. Like they won't vote for a guy because he was an asshole when he was a player, And they're all sports writers, right? So it's like, I'm not voting for him because he was an asshole to me. It's weird.
Joey, we just lost Joey. I don't know where we're at, but he'll be back. Paul, to your point, I mean, Jim Rice and Eddie Murray were kept out forever. And you put some of these other guys in now, it just doesn't make a lot of sense. But I brought Joey Votto up for Joey because I know he's got a bug about Joey Votto getting in the Hall of Fame, and who knows if he's going to. But his stats don't, 295, 355 in homers. Good player, really good player.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that Joey Votto's a Hall of Famer. But yeah, I think the question is going to be, it used to be you were a first baseman, you were judged against other first basemen in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
You were an outfielder, you were judged by, and I think that's gone out the window. And it's almost like, well, we got to put somebody in who's getting in.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's funny because in your message to me a couple of days ago, you mentioned Votto. So I started looking at his stats. I went to this Baseball Reference, and I started thinking of other first basemen, like first basemen that have been really good, pivotal to their team, And like the first one, of course, because I'm a Met fan, I thought of Old So I went to Old stats, and I looked at them, and they pale in comparison to Joey Votto's, like career-wise. Yeah. And I started thinking, and I'm looking at Votto's stats, and I'm like, wow, what a really good, solid career. Those are not Hall of Fame numbers. That's not best. That's not best of the best. He may have had a year or two he was the best, but if we gave every guy who was the best at their position for 1 or 2 years a piece of the Hall of Fame, there'd be nobody outside of the Hall of Fame.
Joe, achievements it, doesn't it? And welcome back, Joe. We lost you for a minute.
Yeah, no. We were talking about Jim Thome. We looked at his stats, but you don't know he's in the top 10 all-time strikeouts. Like, we don't look at these stats. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you got to be careful with that because, I mean, nobody struck out more than Reggie Jackson and Mickey Mantle. And those guys are obviously Hall of Famers. So you got to look at the whole thing. But was Reggie Jackson the best player in baseball for a while? Yeah, he probably was. In those early 70s, was Mickey Mantle the best player in baseball for a while? Yeah, he probably was. I would never say Jim Thome was the best player in baseball. He was not better than Don Mattingly. He was not better than a lot of the first basemen of his generation. So, I tell you the truth, there's a lot of guys I would take over him. Joey Votto's a really good player. And Joe, you brought up a great point. I'm looking at Joey Votto's stats. Joey Votto's a good ball player. But at no point did I ever say Joey Votto was a top 5 baseball player in the game. You don't have to be the best player. But you got to be in your generation. When you take down your career, you got to be in that top 5 before we can have a conversation. Certainly top 10. Certainly.
Yeah. And I'm a Reds fan since '75. I'm not putting them in, but that's just me. I wanted to get. I'm sorry. I talked about this with Tommy. I don't know if Paul, you know about my stance on Hall of Fame. So here it is again. So and it boggles my mind. So you come up. You play, you wait 5 years, and now you're allowed. So you're eligible. And I really believe this. If you don't make it on your first try, why can you make it on your 8th try? Or your stats are not going to change. It really, your stats are not going to change in the next. So, and you'll have sports writers that say this. You know what? I'm not going to vote for so-and-so this year. I'll vote for him next year.
Right. Well, it's the rest of the competition. That's the thing. Because like take a guy like, let's look at Buster Posey, right? Here's a guy that people have talked about Hall of Fame with him, right? Yeah. But if he comes up in a class of possible Hall of Famers and he's standing there with, I'm not going to come up with names, but he's standing there with 5 guys who were definite or really borderline guys.
Right.
How many first place votes is he going to get? Now if you come in and you got two other guys and both of them are mediocre, it's likely you're going to get all the first place votes.
Yeah.
I mean that's what it is.
But just I looked at his stats last year. They're not even as good as I thought. Guy's got 1,500 hits, 290 doubles, 150 RBIs, 729 RBIs, 158 home runs. His batting average is excellent. I don't. This guy is not a Hall of Famer even closely to where we should be, Tom.
Again, is he the best? Would you consider Buster Posey the best player, a top 5 player of his generation? No, I think he was a really good player. He had a couple of, he had an MVP year, right? He was rookie of the year. The guys had a good, solid career. But to your point, if I compare him to who's in the Hall of Fame, am I putting him in the class with Johnny Bench and Yogi Berra and Bill Dickey and Carlton Fisk and all that? I mean, putting him in that category, I'm not. I'm not. But we're running out of time, so I want to get something in before we call it a day, guys. Is there a player out there who's not in the Hall of Fame that should be? I talked about it on the other show. Joe Klecko for years should have been in the Hall of Fame. Is there a guy out there who deserves to be in the Hall of Fame that's not in the Hall of Fame?
I got 2 real fast, and I got so much more than that, but I'll give you, because she's both a Yankees and Mets fan. I think Keith and Mattingly are Hall of Famers. Keith Hernandez, we don't even we forget how good Keith was. I know you don't. I think he won 11 Gold Gloves or 12 Gold Gloves.
Yep.
MVP in 1 year. I think their careers, and I think their careers are very similar. If you look at their careers, one's better than the other in this. I think Mattingly had 9 Gold Gloves. So I would put them both in. I might even put a Dale Murphy in.
See, Dale Murphy is my guy in that whole thing. I think Dale Murphy, while his stats aren't great, I think there's a good period of time where Dale Murphy is one of the, if not the best player, is top 5 for a long time on a really, really, really bad team.
Okay,
in Atlanta.
Why not Keith, Tom?
You know what? I can't put Mattingly in because it's only 6 years, and I think Mattingly was a far better player than Keith Hernandez. Keith Hernandez was the best first baseman I ever saw, but Mattingly was just behind him, 1 tick behind him. But Mattingly was a much better hitter than Keith Hernandez was. Power, average, the whole bit. And Hernandez was a good hitter. But I don't consider Keith Hernandez a Hall of Famer. It's close. If you put him in, I couldn't argue, but I don't think he can get in the Hall of Fame.
Even though you just said it, he was the best first baseman you've ever seen.
Again, as a defensive first baseman, but I got to see. I want my Hall of Famer. My Hall of Famer can't be a guy who's a great. Edgar Martinez is my perfect example. Edgar Martinez is one of the best hitters I've ever watched. He didn't bring a glove to the game. You can't be a Hall of Famer. If you don't bring a glove to the game, you can't be a Hall of Famer.
You put up Keith's stats real fast?
Sure can, Joe.
You have time. Paul, what do you think? Who's your guys?
Well, you guys know that I like bad guys. So I'm telling you right now, Clemens, Bonds, Pete Rose. Okay? That's what I think. I think all of them should be in the freaking Hall of Fame. I don't care what they did.
Yeah, well, my problem with it is if you can't go by, I think they did steroids. You got it. If it's not a test, then they can't get in. And you're not telling me that David Ortiz and some other guys who got in, So
right.
So his stats. We got about 2 minutes left of the show. So Keith's over the career, Joe. Let's see, 2,100 hits, 420 doubles, 60 triples, 160 homers, a 296 average. Joe, the guy played 17 years and got for an average for his career, he averaged over 162 games, 87 runs, 169 hits, 33 doubles, 5 homers, 5 triples, 13 homers, and 83 RBIs. Good numbers,
11,
Joe.
11 Gold Gloves.
All right, listen again. By far the best first baseman I've ever watched.
Yeah.
Yep.
So, I listen. A great ball player, a really good ball player, maybe even a great ball player, but an all-world Hall of Fame. In today's day and age, Joe, you're probably right. I think Dale Murphy's a better argument. I think Paul. I mean, obviously Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame. Should be allowed in baseball, no, but Pete Rose should be in the Hall of Fame.
Right.
And I think Clemens, Bonds should absolutely be in. They were great players. McGuire doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. Sosa doesn't belong in the Hall of Fame. None of those guys don't. Joe, would you agree?
Yeah. Oh no. Sosa, McGuire, never. I hope they never get in. There's other guys like Manny Ramirez who might be on the cuff, but I mean,
but Manny failed 2 tests, so to me,
right.
Same with A-Rod.
That's the whole thing. Yeah, that's the whole thing. I mean, we should do like a Hall of Fame show coming up. Maybe that'd be great too.
Listen, with Joe, we go any way you want, but this one's 9:30. I gotta call it. I gotta call it, Joe. God, you can end it, Paul. Thanks for being on, bro. Appreciate it.
You got it. It was a good time. I'll call in at some point during the playoffs so we can yell a little bit.
Yeah. Guys, our special guest today, our lifelong friend for over 40 years, Paul Gill, myself, Tommy Florio. First show, Diamond Talk in the books. We will see you guys next week on Hard Rock and Sports with Diamond Talk with Tom and Joe. Great show, guys.
All right, boys. Good job. I'll see everybody next week. Joe, talk to you off the air. Talk to you later, guys.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Take care.